Welcome to the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. I am your host, Estelle Bingham, and together we'll be delving into the profound meaning of love, the driving force of purpose, and the beauty of connection that shapes the fabric of our lives. In each episode, I sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals out there to understand the ways love has touched them. Poppy Jamie is a wellness entrepreneur, mental health author and former TV presenter. She's also the best-selling author of Happy, Not Perfect, a guide filled with science-backed tools for mental well-being. You may also know her from her fashion accessories brand with friend Suki Waterhouse or her great podcast, Unwind with Poppy. Her most recent venture is the With Gratitude app, where she helps people like you find the joy in the little things, forming deeper connections with their loved ones. Poppy's all about combining mindfulness with cutting-edge science to help people better their headspace, to be more curious, compassionate, and resilient. Welcome to the podcast. So exciting to have you here.
I'm really excited to be here.
And of course, we were chit-chatting before this podcast started, and we were talking about star signs, weren't we, of all things?
Yes, yeah.
And you being a Cancer.
Yes.
And me being an Aries. You thought I was a Scorpio, which was interesting.
Yes, because funnily enough, Scorpios and Aries, I feel, share that deep confusion as to kind of what Astrobabble says about them and what they actually are. You know, Scorpio, I think, has a kind of reputation that, people go, oh, Scorpio, when actually I think they're the most incredible sign. And sometimes people think Aries are stubborn, when actually my mother's an Aries. And I don't know, would you say you're stubborn?
Poppy, I would say, if I'm being really, really honest, that I've probably got a few there's a bit of a stubborn streak in there. People who are listening to this who know me will be like my son would say I was stubborn for sure. So I'm just like, hands up. I'm probably a stubborn Aries. I'll just But I love the fact that we were talking about this idea of, you being a Cancerian. You mentioned that you're in your early 30s. And then you sort of, it brought a tear to your eye, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
I know. I think that I've been thinking about, this is something I've been thinking about for years. It's very much a journey that all women go through, not to be too gendered, but as soon as I kind of got into my 30s, I feel that your identity gets questioned in so many ways because I wasn't aware of the expectations on women that so much conversation is about. Because in my 20s, I felt that I could do anything and there was no timeline and it was just such an expansive time for me. Then it was only when I reached my 30s and as every year goes by, I've become so much more aware of what is supposed to be, timelines. Of course, our biological clock starts ticking, but yeah, it's been a very fascinating journey, becoming more aware of age.
Yeah. And actually, we always think about our initiations and I really work with the initiations that we go through. So, whether it's from the teenage into the early 20s and then what happens at 28 with that Saturn return and then into the 30s and the ideas of self and the ideas of what it means to be a woman, like you say, or a mother, or what happens with career and then onward, until, I've hit menopause. So these incredible moments that we're offered, these invitations to sort of meet different parts of ourselves. And actually at each sort of step in the road, at each gate, there's a sort of potentially a different set of things to unpack and potentially and anxieties to unravel. Would you say that feels true for you?
It's so true. I love obviously what you said. It's an invitation. But obviously it kind of takes a beat to understand it's an invitation. I think when we're first greeted with it, well, for me anyway, it was just that, kind of a bucket of fear, and not realizing, I guess, we're all very aware of that language of how we've been conditioned and societal expectations, but I think I got to this point where there's some ways we don't even realize we've been conditioned until suddenly you get to this point. And I love when people say Mick Jagger's totally redefined what it means to be in your 80s or whatever. And it's kind of, I do think there's an invitation to redefine whatever age we're at, but at the same time, it does take a beat to get to that empowerment to redefine it. Because when I first met her, I was like, oh my God, I'm not in a relationship. Oh my God, does this mean I'm never going to be able to have children? And suddenly this dream of what I felt my life could be was at the brink of destruction.
I think you're speaking to so many people that will be listening to this podcast. So many of my clients who come in their 30s, but this can kind of start kicking in also mid-20s. It just depends how you're conditioned.
Yeah.
What's it feeling like, Poppy? Like, how are you navigating that?
I think I've got to the point where I am seeing it more as an invitation and far more at ease and in trust of kind of divine timing. But I would say that has been, 4 years of trying to get there. And I think that actually, in general, how I kind of meet any challenge is I will, as soon as I feel discomfort, I will try and get to the bottom of that discomfort as quick as possible. And, for me, that rested in a lot of really challenging some of these beliefs I had about what I should be doing, when I should be doing, and how it should look like. And I'm not sure if people are familiar with sub-personalities.
Yeah.
And I did this very deep meditation to sub-personalities. And for anyone who doesn't know, it's a visualization that someone like yourself would take someone on. And you don't know what your imagination is going to conjure up. And so when I was in this meditation and I was kind of invited to go walk through a wood and into this house and meet, there was going to be 2 characters there. I was going to open the room and meet someone. I didn't know who that person was going to be. And I met this woman who was weeping. And she was kind of in this almost like princess medieval outfit. And she was weeping. And I then was in the meditation by the guide invited to ask her questions. Why is she crying? And this woman was crying because she was grieving the life that she thought she would live, that she wasn't living. And that, after the meditation, they told me what the point of the meditation, and there was a part of me that was this woman, obviously, very metaphorical, but I spent many years grieving what I thought my life would look like at this point, and it didn't look like it. Yeah. And I just tousled, and I was angry, and I was frustrated, and then I remember being told that beautiful Joseph Campbell quote, we have to kind of accept the life we have, not the one that we wanted. And in that acceptance, I was able to say, hold on a minute, it isn't so bad. I don't think you thought you were going to be doing this, or I don't think you'll be doing that. So even though it wasn't exactly how I thought I wanted it, I had to get to the place where I was appreciating what I'd become.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who maybe subpersonalities is a new thing, it's a psychoanalytic way of meeting, or psychotherapeutic way actually, of meeting different parts. And these are the parts that are in the unconscious.
Yes.
Right. So they actually, if we give them some space, they can, it's that sort of internal family systems dynamic as well. So it's exactly the same.
Wonderful therapy.
Yeah. And so also when we work shamanically or interdimensionally, they're also soul parts. But these archetypal parts of us, or parts of us, can meet us with these stories if we give them space through meditation or healing, or, just pause or breath, and really teach us so much and actually connect us with so much. Because that moment where you were giving space to that medieval, that archetypal medieval woman who was grieving, actually allowed you to move on. You met this beautiful part of you, and it was safe for her to emerge, really, and for you to hold her safely. But and then we move into sort of forgiveness and acceptance, because often we need to forgive ourselves when things don't work out the way that we need them to, or think we want them to. We have these ideas about life, and I see it all day long. So we white knuckle, or we have, actually I was in a session last night, and the whole session was based around this truth of things don't go the way that we want them to go. And when they don't,
yes.
what that feels like. And we have to then roll that back. We roll that back to, the fact that we're here and we're growing and we're evolving. And these moments in time really offer us other things. There are other gifts in these moments in time, which are to grow and stretch and trust and be in flow and, all the things that you also do. So you've got your beautiful gratitude app that you were talking me through before this podcast started, which is just an incredible, amazing resource for people. It's free, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's a way to also, we come back to this thing where you allow that grief to wash through you and flow through you, and then come back to sort of your gratitude for life.
Yeah, because I've never ever met someone who's got everything they wanted. And this idea that we can have everything we want is so ridiculous. And yet it is so kind of oppressive in the society. Do you know what I mean? I think people sell you this idea that you can get everything you want and you can't. And that's when I think I've come to this point of, God, the universe will always give you something better, actually, and if you wait and kind of wait long enough. And this gratitude app, this gratitude practice has been such a gateway into that completely different set of beliefs that actually things are so much better than what we might perceive them to be. And it started because my best friend, a girl called Suki Waterhouse, she out of nowhere said, hey, I've got so much on my plate. She was touring her music, just crazy schedule. And she said, I really need to do something that's going to help me, support kind of my mood. And it would be really nice to do it with you. I said, oh my God, anything like this, I'm always in. And simple practice, we just had to find 10 good things about the day and we sent it to each other on text. And it was so nice because obviously you chat with your best friend every few days or whatever. But if you've got a busy schedule, sometimes you miss those and it's once every week. And on a catch up, you don't necessarily say, I had a really good coffee this morning. You don't. You kind of go to the big things and then you kind of have a just general chit chat or whatever. And it was so nice to see every single day her list. And it was, really small things. I thought, oh, that's sweet. Oh, she's done this. Oh, she's gone to a workout class. Oh, she's happy about this and vice versa for me too. And if something had gone badly that day, in your gratitude list, you wouldn't admit the bad things. You would have to turn it around saying, I'm really grateful that I didn't lose my shit when I was challenged by my very annoying work colleague, So you would switch that kind of thing that annoyed you into something that you could be happy about or what you learned from that experience, for example. And then obviously some of it is really frivolous, like happy I got my nails done. I'm like, oh, babe, send me a picture of the manicure, kind of like high-low. And we did this for 8 months straight. And I suddenly thought, this is the first thing I've ever stuck to. I've probably only stuck to brushing my teeth as much as I've done this practice. And I was wondering, why have I stuck to these finding 10 good things every single day when, by the way, every single person listening to this podcast has heard that gratitude is good for you. Nobody needs that, signpost. We all know gratitude is good. But the fact is that how many of us do it, even though we know it's good for you, how many of us do it because we lose the gratitude journal, life gets busy, everything gets in the way. And I thought, why have I stuck to it now? And I think it's because I was doing it with my best friend. Yeah. So I said to Suki, why don't we build this into an app? So it means that everybody then has this sacred platform that you can get reminded to write 3 to 10 good things about the day. And then you invite a friend, or I have a bubble of my family. You have these gratitude bubbles and you invite people into it. So then when I write mine, and I send it to my family's bubble, Suki's bubble, a few other friends' bubble. They get reminded saying, Poppy's written her gratitude, write yours. And then they have to write yours to unlock mine. And suddenly we now have thousands of people on this app all writing these private gratitude lists, inspiring their friends to do the same. And you feel so deeply connected to the people you're doing it with because you're hearing about the minute details of their day. And what's so lovely about it is it's not fake like Instagram. I mean, you're not going to put on Instagram, oh, I got to work 10 minutes quicker because the traffic wasn't there. Yeah. It's just something you wouldn't maybe even focus on. And, that lovely quote, what you focus on gets louder. I generally feel like my life has changed from just every single day now for over a year, just focusing on small good things that happen. And it could be as small as I enjoyed my coffee this morning.
I love that because, it's this idea that we don't need to be signposted towards gratitude because we've heard about that, but that is the reality is, how often does that happen? I mean, I actually wrote about gratitude and glimmers in my book.
I love glimmers.
Yeah, we love a glimmer. And, with the science backed, it's all science backed. It does change it changes the brainwaves. You will alter your state of mind if you keep a gratitude or glimmer a diary. What I love about what you've done here, Poppy, is also you've kind of combined it with community. And that's also such a massively healing piece of that resource, I think, is bringing that into community. So we can write a gratitude diary, and often our sort of healing journeys can be quite they can be quite insular, and although getting into community, whether it's a yoga class or a breathwork class or whatever that looks like for you, but often I'm going to now journal, and I just love the idea of this sharing in the moment, all of it. And I love the highs. I love the sort of different levels too, because I feel like that the glimmer is, it was, my matcha tasted good. It wasn't, there wasn't too much green powder in it. Right. And it was such a good coffee, or it was like, I had a really nice, I just smiled at someone today and they smiled back, or I don't know, whatever it is. It's just really appreciating those small things is so important.
It's so true. And the science behind it is, as you said, amazing. If you write a grateful list, so often I'll do the app before bed. And it's because studies found that there's a 25% increase in sleep quality if you go to bed with more positive thoughts, because often it's the anxious thoughts that, will stop us going to sleep or wake us up in the middle of the night. So it's really helpful for sleep. After doing it for 6 weeks, people in another science study found that it was a 20% more increase in life satisfaction. And you're thinking to yourself, there's no medication involved. Nothing has changed aside from this power of changing the focus and the perspective that you are going to take on each day. And if life is just made of, the meaning of it, what did we make that situation mean to us? It's so malleable, meaning you can turn a good situation to a better situation just through a different choice of how you want to make meaning of that.
So that mental health, that mental health piece, which is at the sort of the kind of the psyche meets science, and we love the backup of that, is also a spiritual piece, isn't it? It's also, there is the reality of when we are in a frequency of re-evaluating in the moment, what is this moment? So is it a kind of, I've come to a standstill, or is it an invitation? Is it, when we get to do that, we're sort of, there's something else that's happening. It feels like that kind of evolving of spirit, or you're just moving yourself into a greater part of yourself, really.
Yeah, and there's a beautiful book called The Magic, and she opens the book going through all the different religions and how gratitude was a thing that no matter what religion that you have been exposed to or practice, gratitude is in every single one of them. And I think that we're going through this shift of talking about these things that are good for us to doing, let's do wellness rather than just talk about it or perform it.
Yeah.
And for me, that was such a big shift, because I've been in, the wellness industry for over 10 years, and I love research, and I can spend days and days and days deep in research. Then you start to go, okay, that's great that you've done the great research. Fantastic, Poppy. But when are you actually going to then implement this in your life? And that was, I think, was so powerful. I started doing this every single day, coming back to myself. It was in the doing I found the true medicine.
Yeah. It's in the embodying, isn't it? Like really bringing that into your cells and sort of really shifting your frequency from the inside out. It's a different way of communicating with the world when it's kind of embedded in the cells. And that feels like what you're sort of talking about in a way, sort of taking it out of the mind and bringing it in.
Yeah. And when someone asks you, oh, but what are you grateful for today? it kind of almost like shifts the area in your brain, because you've got to go, okay, what did I do today? Okay, so what can I be happy about today? Really, it just takes an extra layer of being able to then process it and then obviously come up with your specific personalized output. And I think it's, when you're talking about a frequency, it obviously manifestations become this very big buzzword, but when you peel it back to simplicity, you've got to be in a state of gratitude to even welcome, to even have your hands open to receive anything. So I often find that people are manifesting inverted commas till they're blue in their face, because they're like, I want this, I want that. And in wanting, you're also in the vibration of lacking. So I found that everything has just become a lot easier since I start my day and end my day with a feeling of like, giving thanks.
Giving thanks, absolutely. I actually write about that in my book, and I think I even say people can create vision boards till they're blue in the face, until I say till the cows come home, and it doesn't necessarily land unless the frequency, it's where it's coming from. Where is that push moving from inside you? So it is a game changer. Hi, it's Estelle here, and I'm so excited to share my new book with you. Manifest Your True Essence, Clear Your Blocks, Find Your Joy, Live Your Truth. This is more than just a book. It's an invitation to come home to your heart. Within its pages, you'll find the guidance to reconnect with your true essence. Through gentle meditations, heart-centered practices, and soulful wisdom, you'll learn how to release old patterns, embrace your divine spark, and manifest a life filled with love, purpose, and connection. You can order Manifest Your True Essence on Amazon or wherever books are sold, and begin the sacred journey back to your heart today. Remember, you are love, you are light, and you are infinitely powerful. You mentioned, Poppy, about being in sort of wellness for 10 years. Before that, you were sort of quite, I suppose extraordinarily, you were sort of the youngest presenter for ITN, is that right?
Gosh, yeah, it seems so long ago now.
So news, you started in news.
Yeah, exactly.
And was that a place, having that kind of media, the pressure of that and all of the stuff around that, did you find that that's where you started to meet anxiety? Were you anxious yourself, or did it come later when people, because I know that there were lots of people that, wrote into you saying, I'm so anxious, and it kind of started that journey for you?
Yeah. So, when I was 19, since I was 7, I just knew I wanted to, at the time, it was being a TV presenter. And I would be, presenting family videos on kind of the VHR kind of camera, way back when. And then at 19, I got my first TV presenting job, which was in news, being a reporter. And then I moved to LA because I was, when I look back at my younger self, it was such amazing, naive optimism. It was just kind of, I'm going to do this. And I just wouldn't stop until I did it. And so I said, I'm going to move to America, and just did it. Got a flight and didn't know a single soul in America, and just, managed to make it happen. I don't really know how.
Well, manifested it, right? Because you believed in it. So that optimism does push you into, there's a fearlessness.
Yeah, there's a fearlessness. And this is why I think I struggle, and I have this, I find the word manifesting so complicated, because I think to myself, did I manifest that, or did I work so hard, email 100 million different people, and put myself out there against my anxiety and fear, because I, to your point, had this dream and vision that pulled me, but there was so much effort behind it. Do you know what I mean? I didn't put it on my vision board and suddenly it happened. It was hours and days and years of and since I was 7, presenting the videos at home, there was an element of this kind of always putting so much effort behind this thing I really wanted to do.
And drawing it to you, that's an important part, that work piece, it doesn't just land in your lap. It will not land in your lap. you will have to show up every day and be, you have to meet the universe, the laws. You have to meet all of the energy with your own energy.
Yeah. And then don't get me wrong, truly magical things happened. I met the first person who gave me a job on a train. Now, if that is not the universe energy kind of meeting me with all the effort that I was kind of outputting with some beautiful moment of synchronicity. Like, I totally believe that there was these magical moments that happened that were encouragement. They were invitations that said, yes, keep going, Poppy, keep going. But what I would say, what I think went wrong with my inverted commas manifestation is I also, when I got there, it suddenly had to manage crazy anxiety and feelings that I didn't really have in the intensity that I did have them when I moved there. So I think it's funny because it's that saying, be careful what you wish for. Because I wished for this. And yes, there was all this effort and the universe helped me tremendously with these incredible, like, magical moments. And then suddenly this magic just extinguished from my life. And all this kind of like wonderful kind of like magical energy that I had just almost went away. And I was sitting in LA and I had this, TV show. I launched the first TV show on Snapchat and we had, millions of people watching. And in some ways it would have looked like a dream from the outside. And I was getting all these messages from people saying, I feel so anxious, and I could relate to all of them. And I think that perhaps it was deep down my severe lack of self-esteem and confidence came to kind of bite me in the bottom. I hadn't done the healing work, obviously, right? I was so young, and this wasn't a conversation. The conversation that's in the kind of public domain now about healing and really understanding yourself, that we hadn't evolved to that point at this time. So in 2013, 2014, my mother's a psychotherapist, so I kind of had I was very fortunate. I had her to kind of call up, because even though I was doing this fabulous show, I was barely getting paid for it. It was a very, it was a tech company that was like, sure, you can do this to millions of people, but there was they didn't, it wasn't the bright lights of television that they going to give me hundreds of millions of dollars. It wasn't. It was, they barely paid me anything. So I couldn't afford a therapist. I couldn't afford any of these, these so-called like helpful tools. So I remember calling up my mum being like, God, this is awful. And clearly, I'm not alone in feeling like this. And that's when I decided to set up my first company, Happy Not Perfect, which was this idea of how do we gamify, how do we digitalize psychotherapeutic tools. So if you don't have access to a psychotherapist, like I didn't, because I couldn't afford one unless I was talking to my mum, how do we create this and give it to everyone? And that was, and again, it was through kind of learning and then applying this knowledge on kind of how I was approaching life. And yeah, that was the crazy experience of LA, from kind of TV presenter to suddenly trying to build a tech company and all the issues that creates.
And if we think about destiny, I mean, you wouldn't have got there without being there. And this incredible app came from that, right? Which is just millions of people.
Yes, it was. It was an amazing app and
a book.
And a book that came out of that. And it was, a crazy journey, but it was truly kind of jumping in the sea and not having, having been taught to swim and going, trying to keep your head above water. And I remember in the book, I talk about duck syndrome, which was this idea that all of us are trying to look like we've got life handled and, our hair kind of brushed at the same time. And actually beneath the water, we are all paddling for dear life. And that was very much my experience, but an experience that I wouldn't take away. It was hard. I was going through my Saturn return as well at this point. And I was living between LA and New York on a flight every single week. And again, it feels so strange now to say it, but there weren't podcasts about women founders or this is how you raise money or this. It was purely just the wild, wild west. But it was amazing. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity of, and I do truly believe that part of it was me, but part of it, the universe was very much kind of going, okay, you're about to meet this person. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, push. And suddenly I'd meet this person that would invest in the company or grow the company or introduce me to this person. And I remember going, because I had also launched a fashion company at the same time, and we were launching the fashion company in Shanghai. And it was in Shanghai that I met this random man that was the person that eventually who helped sell Happy Not Perfect. So through that experience, I learned that in the most unusual places, you will find the people that you were most meant to meet.
Absolutely amazing. I love this story. And also this kind of evolution of Poppy Jamie. We've got from, turning up in LA and all of everything that happened there, which is sort of the low point of, the Snapchat conversations and feeling anxious and being like, where am I, who am I, and what's going on? And actually, fast forward, you've kind of, you've founded and sold 2 businesses. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty profound.
I think often when people read your resume or CV and you're only reading the outcomes of people, everyone's life, I think, sounds pretty phenomenal. If you read anyone's CV, everybody sounds pretty fab. And when you've been so familiar with your own journey, it's really difficult to just go, ta-da!
Yeah.
Because
I've arrived. Yeah.
Because actually they were all pretty challenging journeys, to be honest. And I don't think I don't know why I expect anything different. I think all of us have challenging journeys. I don't think I've met anyone that says life has been easy. And so I think that I've definitely got to more of a place where my expectation aligns a bit more with life's reality. So rather than being shocked when I meet a challenge, I kind of say, oh, great, nice to meet you again.
Yeah.
How do we handle this better?
Yeah. So do you think that's the secret of success?
I think it really goes back to kind of what do we define as success? I think in LA, I had a very egocentric definition of success. I think that LA at that time, 2013, 2014, 2015, over 10 years ago now, I was surrounded by extremely famous people. And so I think I probably associated that with success, fame and money and beauty. And my Saturn return was, a pretty dramatic redefinition of success. And realizing, and I feel lucky that I've been able to meet an awful lot of those people that are arguably the most conventionally successful people. And when you look behind the scenes, you realize that, I actually wouldn't want that life. And so I think that as my definition of success has changed dramatically, I have become a lot happier.
Yeah. So also behind success is failures, right, too? What would you say to someone today who is starting, has an idea, has a vision? Because within this, so when we just sort of take it down to brass tacks, you've got to this place where you've reevaluated your definition of success and you are happy, not perfect. And there's something like what I'm hearing in your words is there's a sort of simplicity to it. It's not a kind of ego. It's not an all singing, all dancing. You've arrived at a huge amount of sort of humility in this conversation too. And it's, that's something you're bringing to this moment, which will make you feel happy and that you don't need to be perfect. But what would you say to someone starting out today who maybe has an idea for something, the way that you arrived with your gratitude app that before the podcast started, so much excitement and, it was a little seed of something. What would you say to them?
I think truly success and happiness is so linked to being able to have self-expression in this world and also an element of creativity. And I think creativity is often we're misled in the sense that, I can't paint, so I'm not creative, or I'm not a singer, I'm not, I can't sing or whatever. And just having any degree of creativity in your life, whether that be really enjoying cooking or just really enjoying making your home nice or, whatever that is, I think is truly the thing that kind of sets my soul on fire. So in the building of this app, it's made me so happy. And look, I've got no idea how it's going to do. For me, this app is truly a complete game changer and life changer. But maybe it won't be for other people. But the creativity and in doing it with Suki, which is so fun to be creative with friends. And, we didn't have a specific outcome. We didn't set this up saying, we are going to make this because it's going to become this. We didn't. We said, we're loving this. And should we try? So I think for anyone who has an idea, it's try and do it in whatever scale that is, with whatever means you have. Try to just take your tiniest step towards it. For us, it started just on message. And then I happened to know someone who had a tech company who are phenomenal, and they wanted to get involved. And suddenly it became a bit of a chain reaction. But often I think it goes back to perfection. We are expecting things to be so perfect, which means we don't even take the first step. And this has been an amazing process there was zero expectation on outcome. It was just, as long as we're going to enjoy it, we're going to continue. And it has been just a joy. It's been a joy.
Amazing. So what's next for Poppy?
I've just written a book, which is coming out in October.
What's that called?
It's called, for the moment, it might have a slight change, but at the moment it's called Magical. And it's really around my absolute kind of just love of magic and witches, and redefining what a witch means. Because, I would describe you as a witch, but that would be the greatest compliment I could give a woman. And I just love the word. And I feel that obviously most people would assume I'm talking about, the witches in Macbeth, or, the witches, round a cauldron doing horrible things, whereas witches were our greatest wise women, and they were persecuted for their wisdom and for their healing. And they were our first psychologists, midwives, and doctors and scientists. And when we reclaim the word witch, I think that we reclaim women's wisdom, which was the greatest wisdom since, humanity have lived on this earth. So it's looking back in the history of witches and the history of the fact that, magic predates any religion and any spirituality. It goes back to the laws of magic, and the book is a celebration of that, and a celebration really of women like yourself.
Amazing. I love the sound of that book. I mean, I actually have a novel that's quite similar though.
Oh,
yes.
Fictional.
That has been floating around
really?
for quite some years.
Oh, we need it.
We do need it.
We need it.
I mean, it was floating around. It's been floating around for years, and before. Obviously this has become, because the word witch, or the idea of the sort of herbalists and the healers, and it's now in our vernacular. It's much more. It's here. It has arrived. But this book is fictional, so I think that's it needs to be out there. It does need to be out there. But I'm loving the sound of Magical, and I've loved having you on the podcast today, Poppy. It's just been so fabulous.
Thanks so much for having me.
So wonderful. Before you go, the words love, purpose, connection. That's the question we ask at the end. It's a question I ask at the end. What do they mean to you?
Oh, gosh. I would say they are all doing words. So love, I've had to really redefine what that means to me. And love is a doing, how do you love a pet? You look after your pet, you take your pet for a walk, you give your pet food. And so that's how my love language is acts of service. So that's doing. Purpose is doing. I know obviously a lot of people, their job and their purpose is not the same, which is fine. But having some sort of doing purpose in your life, I think, has been a real key to my happiness. And if you can combine them, obviously mega, but obviously doesn't always have to be the case. And connection is, again, a doing word. How do you connect with people? And connection is an act of thoughtfulness, I find.
And really, it's sort of central to how you live your life.
Yeah, definitely. The With Gratitude app, I feel, embodies a lot of these. It's love for yourself. It's, a purpose to kind of look for good things in life and connect with your closest friends.
Perfect. perfectly imperfect. Thank you, Poppy.
Thank you so much for having me.
So amazing. I really appreciate you coming in.
Really appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Love, Purpose, Connection with me, Estelle Bingham. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd really appreciate that. And if you really liked it, then leave me a review so I can keep doing what I love, healing one heart at a time. You can also follow me, Estelle.Bingham, on Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest releases. If you feel in need of some extra guidance, then my book, Manifest Your True Essence, could be helpful. You can find it online or in any major bookshop. In the meantime, thanks again for listening, thanks again for watching, and I will join you on the next episode of the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast.